Hello guys, how are you doing today? This is a continuation video to the first part of how to install MongoDB using a tarball so that you don't have to rely on the apt-get manager or the apt manager in order to install it for you, which helps you have a better control over your production environment, and this is definitely the way to go. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through some basic concepts like listing the databases, creating the admin user, and enabling the authentication for the MongoDB so that not everyone can log in and fetch the data. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into my Vagrant machine, which is a simulated virtual environment. Now, if you remember, if you'd followed my first video, or even if you'd install Mongo some other way, you can simply do Mongo and it will take you to the Mongo shell. Now this is where you'll see the version of the Mongo you've installed, and it says it's connecting to the database test. Now you are right now in the database test, which you can check by typing db. Now it says you are into test. You can type show dbs, which shows all the databases that you have right now. An example database is something that we created in the first video. So if I go use example database, and now if I type db, it says I'm into example database now. Now whenever you install Mongo, there is always an admin database by default. So if we go use admin, it says you switch to admin, and if you go db, you are into admin db. Now this is where you can actually create an admin user so that you can actually enable auth for your database and you don't lock yourself out. So we're going to create the admin user right now. So the query to create that is db.createUser. You open the bracket, open the curly braces, go user, and that's your username, so I'm just going to call it admin user. Password, which is designated by pwd, I'm going to call it admin password, and then you assign a role to it. Now, so MongoDB comes with a set of default roles, so you can either use them, which are like a very generic role, like a read user, a read and write user, an admin user, a system-wide user, and such. So in this case, we're just gonna use a predetermined role, and the roles are always a list. So it will start with these brackets and then the curly braces. Then you go role, the name of the role you want to assign to the user, which is user, admin, any databases in our case. And where does the user, which database is this user assigned to? So in this case, it's assigned to the admin database so that it knows it's one of the administrative user. You close the brackets and bam, it says successfully added the user. Now if you go db, it says you are an admin. If you go show users, it says it lists the one user that you have, which is the admin user. But also pay attention to this, because I got confused about this when I was learning it a couple of hours ago. So if I were to change the database, let's say if I were to go to example database, now if I say show users, it won't actually show any users here because the admin user is specifically assigned to the admin database. Now you might have this question that we created the admin user, but you're doing all of it without any kind of restrictions. So what's the use of the admin user? Well, if you remember, we did not actually enable the auth to begin with, which is what we're going to do right now. So you can simply type exit, or the quicker way that I follow is Control D. You can do that and it will log you out of your MongoDB instance. Now if you install MongoDB with apt-get, you would find your MongoDB config in etc mongodb.conf, but since we installed it ourselves, our MongoDB configuration file is located at database database, Mongo, and mongodb.conf. Now all you have to do is add these two lines at the end of your file, and if you already have them in your file, just uncomment them. So it says security authorization enable. Now you save the file, then you have to restart the MongoDB service for the changes to take effect. Now depending on how you installed it, you can go sudo service mongodb restart, or in our case we installed it ourselves and it's being run by the supervisor, so we can go sudo supervisor ctl restart local mongo, or whatever you named it during the first video. So it says stopped, it says started, and just to confirm it's properly started, we might as well check the port. So we see 27017 here, which is the Mongo port. Now if we go back to Mongo, let me clear the screen. Now if we go back to Mongo, it again says you're connecting to test. Now if you go show DBs, well, you have an error. It says list databases failed because you're not authorized to execute the commands. So what do you do? Well, the first thing you can do is you can go to the admin database, which says it's switched to admin, but you still can't do anything. So you want to log in first. So what you can do is the command to log in as a user you already have credentials to is db.auth db.auth brackets and your username and your password. So in our case it's admin user and admin password. Now it says 1. So 1 is usually an indicator that the command was executed successfully. If you see 0 here, that means there was a problem. So now if we go show DBs, it lists all the databases. Now if we go I don't know, let's say create a new database, anything, you can add more users according to the roles. So as we were talking about the roles, right, you can go show roles and you can see a whole big ass list of the predefined roles that MongoDB comes with. Now you can make use of any of these, or you can create your own roles that I might explain it in other videos, but this kind of pretty much covers everything. So for example, you have DB admin, so it's an administrative user, but it's the administrative rights are only limited to one database. Now DB owner, DB admin any database. Then you have read user, which can only read any database, read write. So you can actually basically assign any of these roles to any of those users that you create, and that's how you enable auth to prevent unauthorized access to your databases. Now this is really a bird's eye view to how MongoDB works, because I was a little confused coming from database is not my primary job. My job description doesn't cover databases explicitly, but I do have reasonable experience with MySQL, but not extensive. So Mongo was a little confusing at first, so this is why I'm taking it like in bits and pieces and with baby steps, so that you don't end up confusing yourself with too much information to learn. So here we just have basic users and basic databases and all of that, and I'm pretty sure you'll find like more generic commands online just with a Google search. The end goal of this video series is to be able to deploy a fully functional MongoDB cluster, and yeah, well, that's the end goal for me, because I'm gonna have to use it for my production purposes. So I guess in next video we'll talk more about the roles and then enabling clustering and how does the data get distributed amongst the server, and the failover plan, the replication, and more on that. So I hope you enjoyed the series, and feel free to leave a comment, because I might not know a lot of things that you do. So feel free to let me know if I said something wrong, or if I could do something in more optimal or more optimized way. Well, thank you very much guys. Have a good day. See ya.